Welcome to how to create accessible Word documents that can be used effectively by all learners, including those who use assistive technologies. My name is Lauren Woods from the Center for Learning Innovation, and along with Jinhee Chu, in this two-part video, we will walk through practical strategies and tools that can help make your documents more inclusive, usable, and compliant with accessibility standards. In this video, we'll explore the accessibility principles to use in Word, and in a separate video, Jinhee will demonstrate the principles in action and give you a chance to practice on your own. So why does document accessibility matter? Creating accessible documents promotes inclusive learning. It ensures that everyone has equal access to information. It supports compliance with accessibility requirements and standards, but beyond compliance, accessibility improves usability for all by making content easier to navigate and understand. Accessible documents are often just better documents. They use clear structure, consistent formatting, and meaningful organization, which benefits every reader. Accessible documents are particularly important for students. They support greater independence by allowing students to access materials using their preferred tools and technologies. Today's learners also rely heavily on digital content for coursework, communication, and research. And at the same time, these student populations are becoming increasingly diverse with different learning needs, abilities, and preferences. So accessible documents are not just a convenience. They're essential for equitable access to education. Now, if you're familiar with our CLI's digital accessibility web pages, this graphic may be familiar. It highlights several key principles of accessible document design, regardless of the platform that you use. These include using headings to create structure, providing alternative text or alt text for images, creating descriptive hyperlinks, using readable fonts, maintaining sufficient color contrast, ensuring multimedia is accessible, organizing content consistently, and correctly formatting tables. Together, these practices help users navigate and understand documents regardless of the technology they use. Before getting started, it's helpful to know where to find some support and guidance. Now, Microsoft itself provides quite a few accessibility resources for both Windows and Mac users. And we also know there's a wide variety of Word versions available. There's online, the web version, there's the desktop version, there's Windows, Macs, there's different versions within all of those. And while these accessibility features are available across all versions, the desktop version of Microsoft Word offers the most comprehensive set of tools and is generally recommended when creating accessible documents. One of the most important accessibility practices is using built-in heading styles. In fact, try to use the built-in styles features as much as possible across any platform. It not only helps ensuring accessibility, but it can also help make it easier if it comes time to edit. Rather than changing manually font sizes, colors, formatting the text to make it appear like a heading, use the styles that are available in Word's Styles Gallery. For instance, heading 1 should be for main sections, heading 2 to title subsections, and heading 3 for the content beneath those sections, and then there's like a paragraph for standard version as well. It's important when you're doing this not to skip heading levels. Screen readers do rely on this logical hierarchy to help users navigate efficiently. Another example of using built-in styles is when creating lists. Word's built-in bullets and numbering features, instead of manually typed dashes or numbers, allow screen readers to correctly identify them. Now, another important area when it comes to the text on Word documents is text formatting. Be sure to choose clear and easy to read sans serif, no curlicue fonts like Arial and Calibri, and use a minimum font size of 12 whenever possible. Avoid using all caps all the time, and that can be more difficult to read. And the same is true for the use of italics. Limit those because that too reduces readability. When creating hyperlinks, always underline them and avoid relying on color alone to indicate that they are links. This helps users who may have color vision deficiencies or other visual impairments. Color should never be the only way information is communicated. Whenever possible, use Word's automatic font color setting to help maintain sufficient contrast. It's also a good idea to run the accessibility checker to identify potential contrast issues. We'll talk about more the checker in a little bit. Now, if you have colors to indicate status, like pass or fail, or that hyperlink, be sure to include additional indicators like underlining the hyperlink, or things like check marks, X symbols, labels, other descriptive text, because this ensures that the meaning is conveyed even if color cannot be perceived. Now, images themselves should always include alternative text or alt text. Alt text provides the brief, meaningful description of an image so users who cannot see it still understand its purpose and content. Now, to add alt text in a Word doc, you right-click on the image, select View Alt Text. Then you can enter your description or select the AI's version. Sometimes they'll provide a description as well. If an AI image is purely decorative and does not add any meaningful information, you can mark it as decorative so screen readers skip it. An example of a decorative image would be on this screen here. We've got the alt text picture that's in the top right column, but that doesn't really add anything other than making this document kind of consistent across the slides. So there's no need for screen readers to take a look at it. Now, with hyperlinks, we talked about underlining and making them different colors, but they should also clearly indicate where they lead. Rather than using generic phrases like click here or read more, use descriptive text to identify the destination, like the title of the web page or resource. You can also add screen tips to provide additional context when users hover over a link. Meaningful link text benefits both the screen reader users and sighted users in navigating. Now, another topic we have is accessible tables. Tables should only be used for presenting data, not for page layout or visual positioning. Now, I'm guilty of doing this myself, as it sometimes seems to be the quicker way to format lists. However, screen readers do not process the information in a table correctly unless you follow a few things. First, you have to avoid merged, split, or nested cells whenever possible, because that can make it difficult for the screen readers to interpret data relationships correctly. Also, you should avoid leaving cells blank. You can use labels like NA or no data so users understand that the information is intentionally absent and not missing due to an error. Now, when it comes to headers, keep in mind that proper table headers are critical for accessibility. Every table should include clearly defined header rows and, if appropriate, columns. The first row of a table should contain only headers and not the table title. That can be added as a caption or in the inline text just above the table itself. To designate header rows or columns, select the table and use the options available under the Table Design tab. Also, make sure to enable Repeat Header Rows under the Table Layout tab, as this helps maintain context when a table spans across multiple pages. It allows screen readers to communicate row and column relationships more effectively. Always run Word's accessibility checker once you've created a document. Now, if you followed these guidelines we just talked about, as you're creating the document, you shouldn't run into too many errors. But if you already have a document that's created, like, say, a syllabus from last semester's course, it's a good idea to run the accessibility checker first to highlight areas you might wish to change. You can find this tool under the Review tab by selecting Check Accessibility. The checker will identify errors, warnings, and suggestions for improvement. It's important to remember that automated tools cannot detect every accessibility issue. For example, they may not fully evaluate the reading order, heading logic, or the clarity of your content. A manual review is an essential step in the accessibility process. Now, on our CLI digital accessibility pages, we do have a checklist, so feel free to use that also to help you when you're doing your final quality checks. And we have some other resources to support you when you work to make your content more accessible. Here you'll find guidelines and videos and more on our digital accessibility web pages. In addition, Microsoft, as I mentioned at the beginning, has some pretty good accessibility documentation. GSA has some authoring guides, and there's some other video tutorials as well if you're interested in watching, as well as reading and reviewing your resources. Now, taking a moment to go back a bit and just review these key principles that we've discussed. Remember to use headings for structure, alt text for meaningful images, descriptive hyperlinks, choose readable fonts, maintain strong color contrast, and build accessible tables with proper headers. Above all, just use the built-in tools to help organize your documents. That in itself goes a long way toward making your docs accessible. These practices work together to create documents that are easier for everyone to access and understand. Remember, and it doesn't have to be all at once, making a few changes a little each time can always have a big impact. Now it's your turn. Put these concepts into practice. You can download this exercise document and review it for accessibility issues. The information is also on our web pages as well. Use the State of Illinois Accessibility Word Guidelines to identify and correct any errors you might find. As you work, think about headings, color contrast, alt text, hyperlinks, tables, and overall document structure. The best way to become comfortable creating accessible documents is through hands-on practice. Be sure to check your work and then watch the next video in Making Word Docs Accessible, where you'll see Jin-Hee Chu demonstrate Word's accessibility features using this same exercise document. That's it for this overview on making Word docs accessible. CLI is always here to assist you, and we encourage you to continue exploring accessibility resources as you create content that is inclusive and accessible for all learners. Thanks for watching.
The Center for Learning Innovation, CLI, is continuously developing resources and guidance to help you make all of your course materials accessible, including PDFs, Word documents, PowerPoint presentations, Excel files, and even videos. To learn more about digital accessibility and access additional resources, please visit the Digital Accessibility page on the CLI website. Thank you for taking the time to make your course content more accessible and inclusive for all learners.